What is going on, everyone? Adam out here with pragmaticways.com, coming at you today with another homework tutorial, and this one is the military time difference. So this one came from the Facebook group, the Programming Homework Code Reviews Facebook group. So if you're not a part of this group, I highly do recommend you join. A link to this will be in the description below. But basically, it's just a big forum of like 50,000 some people who just help each other with homework problems and stuff like that. So that's where this submission came in from, and we're going to go through sort of a clean, easy way of how to solve this problem here. So what this problem is that we need to write a program that reads two military time formats. So if you're not familiar with military time, it's pretty simple. 0900 is just going to be 9 a.m. 1730 is going to be 5:30 p.m. And basically the way you figure that out is if the number is greater than 12, you just subtract 12, and it's going to be that time, but in p.m., in the evening. So since 17 is greater than 12, 17 minus 12 is 5, so this time is really 5:30 p.m. here. All right, so we need to write a program that reads in two military time formats, and then it's going to print the hours and minutes between those two times. So for example, if the first time was 0900 and the second time was 1730, well, the difference between those two times is going to be 8 hours and 30 minutes. And then they give us a little bit of extra credit here, where we need to deal with the case where the first time is actually later than the second time. So for instance, if the first time entered was 1730 or 5:30 p.m., and then, the first time, and then the second time entered was 0900, meaning 9 a.m., sort of like 9 a.m. the next day. Well, then the time between 5:30 p.m. and 9 a.m. the next day, that's going to be 15 hours and 30 minutes. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is kind of just like think overall, okay, what should this program actually be doing here? Because the first thing I want to do is actually write a test case, but in order to write a test case, I kind of need to know like what I'm actually testing. So I would imagine we're just going to go ahead right off the bat and create some sort of public static method, and this is going to return a string, and that's going to be the output of whatever the actual time difference is going to be. And we can call this, let's say, we're going to call it get duration, all right? And get duration is going to accept two strings, and that's going to be the first military time, and then we'll say the second military time. All right. And I'll just go ahead and say string output. Right now, let's just say that, and then at the end here, we're going to return output. Okay. We might end up changing that out later on, but right now, it's just sort of some boilerplate code to get us up and running here. And what am I? Let's go ahead and press save. Oh, I did not put a data type on here. There we go. That needs to be a string. Now that I have this method, let's go ahead and create a couple test cases that sort of surround these, that test these different cases here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new class here. And this is just going to be called, say, main test here. Why not? And these are going to be some JUnit tests, so let's put in our test annotation here. And we'll call this one public void. I'll say test first time is before second time. Okay. And then we're also going to test where the second time is before the first time. So let's go ahead and Control-C that, Control-V that, and rename, let's see, second time before first time. All right. And now what this test is going to do, we're going to take in a first time, we're going to call it equals 0900, and I'll say a string second time is going to equal 1730, I believe. There we go. Okay. And now we want our expected output is going to equal, let's go back over to our assignment instructions, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy that output there and paste it in there. And now we'll say our string actual is going to equal, we'll say main dot get duration with our first time and then our second time. And now we just want to fix that typo. And now we just want to assert that those equal. Assert equals and we're going to say the expected equals the actual. Okay. And go ahead and save that. Okay, so they're saying this is deprecated now. Or if we can go in here, let's see. Why is that deprecated? Since when? Maybe that's a Java 5 thing and I'm just not up to times here. Java 5 assert equals string. Let's see. Let's see what Google has to say about this. Maybe assertions is what I need. Alright. Let's go ahead and change that to assertions then. Let's see if that fixes us. And let's try and import this. That is right, because I am using JUnit 5, which is the Jupyter API. Okay. And that should work there. And let's import our test annotation. Okay, there we go. And now I can just sort of copy and paste the same thing over here, except this time I want this one to be 1730, I want this one to be 0900, and I want this output to be, what was that, 15 hours and 30 minutes instead. Okay. And just go ahead and paste that in there. And we'll go ahead and run these test cases now, just so we get our red lights to start our test-driven development here. Perfect. We have 2 test failures because these did not pass properly, which is good. That's kind of what we want right now, because now we have a starting point. Now we know. Now we have an end goal, and our end goal is to make these 2 test cases become green. We want these 2 test cases to pass now. All right. So how are we actually going to do this? Well, if you're familiar with Java 8, in Java 8 they came out with this very beautiful time library, which does just a really lot of great things. Actually, if you're not really familiar with the time library, I highly recommend you take like 30 minutes, maybe an hour, to just sort of learn a lot of the ins and outs of like some of the high level different things that you can do with the time library, because it is so powerful, and it sort of takes away all the need to import like Java time or any of these other complex time libraries, because all of this is just sort of baked into Java 8 now with their time library. So we're going to be using the time library heavily in this solution here. So first thing we want to do is create some sort of date time formatter. And what this is going to allow us to do is take in a string format, such as military time, and sort of convert it into some sort of time class here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create a date time formatter. And I'll just call this formatter. And this is going to equal date time formatter dot of pattern. Yep, that's what I'm looking for. We want this to be of the pattern of hour, and minute to delineate military time. All right, so now that we have our date time formatter, now we want to create what's called a local time. And this, again, comes from the time library. So I'll just say this is the first time. This is going to equal, let's see, this is going to be local time, I think, from, and then we just want to say formatter dot parse, and we want to parse out our first military time. All right, so that's pretty simple. We'll just go ahead and copy and paste that for the second time, and we'll say this is our second military time. Okay, and now what we want to do is use another time library class, and this one's called the duration. And what this is going to allow us to do is allow us to get, well, the duration between 2 times. So we're going to say duration equals duration dot between, is it between? Yeah, between first time and second time. Yep. And now all we want to say is our output is going to be the, oops, we're going to say duration dot, we want to get hours here. So if I just type in hours, see what my options are, we want the integer, so 2 hours part. So duration dot 2 hours part plus hours. plus duration. Now we want the minutes. So let's see what methods we have for minutes. Probably something very similar. Yep, 2 minutes part. And then plus minutes. And just like that, now we will just return that output. And I'll go ahead and save this, and let's go run our test cases now, because that might be all we need to do. Okay, so test 2 of 2 ran, but 1 still failed. So our first test passed, where the first time is before the second time. But our second test failed, where our second time before first time. That one did not pass, and we were expecting 15 hours and 30 minutes, but what we actually got was -8 hours and -30 minutes. And the reason we got that is because this local time class has no real delineation between days. So when we said earlier that this is 5:30 p.m. and this is 9 a.m., the local time class doesn't really see this as 9 a.m. the next day like we want. It sees it as just 9 a.m. the same day. So it's kind of like taking the backwards difference of that, which is why we get a -8 hours and 30 minutes. So to fix this now, to fix this for this edge case, what we need to do is we need to create, use some sort of class that actually can understand the concept of different days. And again, we have another very useful class for this that comes from the Java 8 library, time library. So we're just going to change it up a little bit here. And we're going to say if the duration, I love this, there's a nice little helper method in here, is negative. So if the time difference is negative, well, then we need to do things a little bit different here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a local date time, and we're just going to say this is first date time, and this one's going to equal a local date time dot, I think I want the of, yep. So if I go down here, I see of. We can pass in a local date and a local time in order to create a local date time. So for the local date, I'm just going to say local date dot now. And then for the time, I'm just going to pass in the first time. And then this is going to be very similar for the second date time. I'm just going to replace this name here and replace this variable here. And now I want to say though, so if it is negative, remember we want the second time that's earlier in the day to actually be the next day. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say second date time is actually going to equal second date time. And then we have a nice little function here inside this local datetime class called plus days. We just want to say it equals the next day, plus days 1. Okay. And now let's go ahead and regenerate this duration here. But now instead of using the local times, we're going to use our local date time. So Control C that, Control V that, Control C that, Control V that, and then Control Save that, and go over here. And we can run these now, and let's see if that actually works. And there we go. We have test 2 of 2 pass. We've got the green check on both of them, all green bars, red light, green light, test-driven development, all passing, and we have a working, viable solution now to this problem. So if you liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe so you can get notified when we come out with other great content on homework programming channels or anything else like that. And as well, feel free to come over here and join the Facebook group. Again, a link to that will be in the description below. Until next time, everyone, happy coding.